This week, we'll focus on the final chapter of Herbert Simon's book, Administrative Behavior. This chapter is about the anatomy and physiology of organizations. In medicine, anatomy is the study of the structure of living things. Anatomy helps us understand how different parts of a body are organized and related to one another. In an organizational context, the anatomy of an organization can be understood as how an organization is structured and how the organizational structure influences decision-making functions in the organization. To examine the anatomy of an organization, we analyze the distribution of decision-making functions in an organizational culture. Physiology focuses on how living organisms function, studying how different systems operate and interact to sustain life. For example, the digestive system breaks down food into nutrients in the stomach and intestines, which are absorbed into the bloodstream through the walls of the small intestine. Once nutrients are absorbed into the bloodstream, the cardiovascular system is responsible for transporting those nutrients to different parts of the body. The heart pumps the nutrient-rich blood to cells throughout the body, where those nutrients are used for energy production, growth, maintenance, and repair of tissues. The physiology of an organization refers to the processes that govern how the organization operates, particularly in how it influences and guides the decision-making of its members. To examine the physiology of an organization, we analyze the processes by which the organization supplies decisional premises, facilitate the flow of information and resources needed to make rational decisions by operative employees, those who perform the core function of the organization. In this chapter, Simon introduced a new term, composite decision. It means that in an organization, a decision-making process is not the sole responsibility or output of a single decision maker, but rather the accumulation of inputs and outputs from multiple members across the organization. Just like how different organs work together in our human body, in organizations, even though the final decision is officially made by a designated individual, it is actually built up on the inputs and outputs of many organizational members. Their input and outputs are communicated and integrated through both formal and informal communication in the organization. Consider the hiring decision-making process as an example of a composite decision, which is arguably one of the most important decisions any administrator makes. In this process, decisional premises, including both factual and value premises of the hiring decision, are formed through communication among multiple organizational members. The HR department may provide training and protocols of the hiring processes and policies. Your supervisor may exercise influence by controlling the decisional premises, such as requiring the new hire to have specific credentials and experience, which are factual premises, and to demonstrate certain values, which are value premises. Your supervisor may direct you solely on what to achieve, regardless of how to achieve, as long as the goal is met. However, your supervisor may also dictate how tasks should be completed, potentially micromanaging to the extent of specifying your work location, such as mandating you staying at your desk rather than visiting another organizational member's office in the same building to gather necessary information. Organizational communication facilitates the flow of information about candidates, the screening process, and the criteria used in the screening process. The hiring panel or committee makes a recommendation to a higher authority, such as a superintendent in a school district, who then makes a recommendation to the school board. The board has the authority to make the final decision, usually by a majority vote. Throughout this entire hiring decision-making process, it is evident how the inputs and outputs of many organizational members collectively shape the final decision. Each member makes an individual decision and communicates it to the next member of the organization. To examine the composite decision from the standpoint of the individual making the decision, it's important to first evaluate how much discretion is actually afforded to them, and second, what methods the organization uses to influence the decisional premises they select. In the composite decision-making process, the review of the decisions serve four functions. First, review functions as a diagnostic tool for the administrative hierarchy to evaluate decisions made at lower levels. This evaluative function is important for identifying areas that need improvement. Second, reviews have a direct influence on shaping future decisions. Through the review process, specific corrective actions can be initiated, such as issuing directives to address past mistakes or establishing new policies to guide future decisions. It can lead to the development or refinement of training programs to address identified deficiencies, ensuring that employees have the necessary knowledge and skills to make better decisions going forward. Third, the review process can serve as an appellate role, offering a mechanism for re-evaluating decisions that have significant consequences. This ensures that decisions with potentially major consequences are thoroughly vetted by higher authority levels. Fourth, reviews are key to the effective exercise of authority in an organization. They provide a means to enforce compliance with decisions and policies. By monitoring and evaluating adherence to the directives, the review process enables the application of appropriate sanctions or rewards, reinforcing the authority structure and ensuring that decisions are respected and followed. Moreover, the anticipation of review and the potential sanctions can make us more likely to conform to the expected behaviors and decisions, knowing that our decisions will be subjected to review and possible repercussions. In this way, the review process not only influences decisions made after the fact, but also has a preemptive effect on ensuring compliance. One thing I'd like to point out here is that all of the functions of review Simon discussed rest on the assumption that higher levels of the organizational hierarchy are better equipped to make or evaluate decisions. This perspective implies a top-down approach to decision-making and oversight, where authority and expertise are presumed to reside predominantly at the upper echelons of an organization. However, this assumption may not always hold true, particularly in scenarios where operative employees who are closer to the day-to-day operations and may have a deeper understanding of specific issues make more effective decisions than those made by higher-level administrators. Operative employees often have specialized knowledge and a nuanced understanding of the task at hand. When operative employees make better decisions that are subsequently vetoed by administrators, it reinforces the top-down approach to decision-making, which strengthens the centralization of decision-making. In my video on Simon's previous chapters, I mentioned 3 innate human desires. One of them is the desire for power and control. This innate desire of our humans explains why many supervisors tend to centralize decision-making processes in organizations. For example, supervisors may require that they personally approve all decisions, ranging from budget allocations to project timelines, regardless of the decision's magnitude. This can create bottlenecks when even routine and low-stake decisions must wait for the supervisor's review and approval. The supervisor may demand the subordinates use a specific tool to submit information in a standardized form for their approval. However, This centralization tendency not only increases the workload for supervisors, but also renders the role of a subordinate less significant. This centralization leads to inefficiencies in organizations, even in cases where supervisors have superior training and skills, which enable them to make better decisions than their subordinates. Centralization incurs opportunity costs. These costs manifest in both time and financial resources that could be allocated more efficiently elsewhere in the organization. Considering that supervisors typically have higher salaries, which is a matter of debate, it is beneficial for the organization that their time be dedicated to tasks of greater importance to the organizational goals. When a supervisor allocates significant time to decisions that could be handled at lower levels, the organization may pay a steep price in terms of attention that could be paid to more important matters. The slight increase in decision accuracy achieved through centralization may not justify the high cost of organization has to pay. Moreover, centralization takes more time and adds a financial burden to the organization because referring a decision upwards not only duplicates decision-making efforts, but also the cost associated with communicating those decisions back down the hierarchy. Therefore, any potential gains in the decision accuracy achieved by centralizing the decision-making process must be carefully weighed against those significant costs. On one hand, the innate desire of supervisors to centralize decision-making, which comes from an inclination towards accumulating power and authority, exemplifies the centralization tendency of power. On the other hand, for the sake of organizational efficiency, it is imperative that supervisors resist this innate desire for power and control and aim for decentralizing decision-making processes. This decentralization runs counter to humans' deep-seated desire for power and control. This tension underscores a key point. Wielding power responsibly requires a delicate balance between exercising control and empowering others. Sometimes the greatest challenge is not in acquiring power, but in knowing when and how to relinquish it for the greater good of the organization. When you have power, you become your own worst enemy.